Hello everyone, I'm Miha from Nova Gorica, Slovenia, and from the border with Italy, Gorizia. So I have the same name as the other Slovenian one, Miha, so we are trying to be economic towards you, so you need to learn just one name. I have to take the computer that I will not be too long, because if I start to improvisate, it will get just longer and longer. So, okay. So, Gorizia, Nova Gorica is here. Here is Benetka, that is Vedis. Here is Rijeka, here is Trieste, and here is Ljubljana. So, in the between of this city that we have a basic approach, there is this double town that is called here. This part is Gorizia, and here this part is Nova Gorica. So, as I'm part of an organization that is based mostly on the production of, let's say, theory, humanistics, social studies, and literature, my presentation will be a short, a very short, hopefully, I have even here a clock, presentation of the history of this area, of the last 1,000 years of this history, and how actually in these last years there is kind of a conceptual, let's say, response to the history. The history is made like every history is made. You know, it has a golden age, it has trauma, and it has kind of a reawakening. So, in the in the year 1001, is the first time that is Gorica, as here is named. This is the time of, let's say, starting of the feudalism in this territory, made by the hegemony of the Franks in Europe. So, because we are in Frankfurt, we must know this. And it says something like this. I will look here because I have a bigger translation. It says that the holy document is on that one. The Holy Roman Emperor Otto I addressed the Patriarch of Aquileia, John II, the Count Verhin Epstein of Friuli, that in the Latin is Unius Castelli Codicitor Silganum et Meditatim Unis Sclavorum Lingua Vocator Gorizia. So that he is giving these possessions of a castle named Sokan, Silganum, and half of the village called Gorizia. So what I wanted to put here, half of the village says in the how the Slavic name this village Gorizia. So we have already a lot. We have already the Franks. We have the Patriarch of Aquileia, that is kind of an Italic spiritual force that is actually trying to Christianize this territory, and is against the Bishop of the Salzburg, that is kind of a German spiritual force that is coming to this territory. We have the Count that is from Friuli, and we have a Slavic toponym. So actually, at the same time, from the very first beginning, we have actually a multitude that is going on here, and it will stay actually for all the time further, like Claudio Magris said in his book, The Different Seas, says, a true Gorician, the professor said, this is a quote, needs to know Italian, German, Slovenian, Friulan language, and the Venetian Trieste dialect in order to live in a relaxed and a natural environment. So this is the place where this let's say, civilization or culture meet. Especially this is the one of the most westernmost Slavic, let's say, part, let's say, city in a way, and where it meets, you know, the Italian part, so the Romance part. So from Nova Gorica and Gorizia to the east, we have continuously to Vladivostok the Slavic language. And if we go from Gorizia to the west, we have two Tijuana, actually, Romance languages. So they here meet, they kind of live together, but they do not just meet. Actually, yes. Ah, okay. Actually, they don't just meet, they actually even put, they even cross the names. So we have the main square that is nowadays still called Travnik, that means meadow. We have the first main road going in the medieval city that is called Rashtel, that means the forged city, that is a Friulan word. And then we have a street that goes from this street, small street, goes up to the castle that is called Kočevja, which is actually a made-up word, actually a split, not split, but put together word with Koče, that means hut, and Via, that means street. So Kočevja is actually already a Schlupfurdian word, as we want to say, made in the, let's say, from the medieval times on. But the Kočevja, so this street, small street, was also the first place for first ghetto, for a Jewish ghetto. So we have already even the first. This is me. We have already even the Jews that are already in the 14th century documented, but maybe they are mostly even before. So we have, let's say, from 12th, 13th century already even a Jewish community. So this was always a small city, but already we have these people coming together. This is a tragic story of the Jews that actually from the Middle Ages to 1943 live in Gorizia. On the 21st of November, they are completely internated, killed in Auschwitz. One thing maybe interesting about this Jewish, let's say, story is that it's called they called the city Jerusalem on Isonzo. So Isonzo Socha is the river, and in a way, what I found kind of a let's say, interesting, strange, or sad, or tragic is that actually even Jerusalem is a divided city. So the Jerusalem on Isonzo is a divided city now, and even the Jerusalem is a divided city. And one more fact, there are only two cities in Europe that have a Jewish cemetery one part and synagogue on the other part. This is Gorizia, Nova Gorizia, and Frankfurt and Subice. One of the oldest intern in history of Auschwitz was also Emma Luzzatto Michelstetter. She was from Gorizia, and she was mother of a very known philosopher, Judeo-Italian philosopher from the beginning of the 20th century. He died very young at 23 years old. He wrote in his thesis, before he made the suicide, he wrote this thesis and then made it suicide, and said something like this: there are no trams on path of persuasion. For him, persuasion is the true existence of a person. No science that can be communicated, learned, and repeated. But everyone feels that he must find his path. Pain shows which way to go. Each one must forge his own path because he remains alone. No one can help him, he must help himself. There is only one signpost in the path of persuasion: do not be satisfied with what you are given. So he was talking actually about how words that are already given to us cannot give us life, but we must sometimes invent words and find our own words. And this is, I think, a very border philosophy. So actually the city of Gorizia, Gorizia, we are still in one city here, is most of its known history, it's part of the Habsburg rule. So from 1500 to 1918, this is part of the Habsburg house. The Gorizia is kind of a city that is in a way part of something that is extra-national. And this is why, in a way, even it remains, it's not, there is no conflict around its people, its languages and so on. Even more, Maria Theresia and his son, Leopold II, really like this territory, and they put much effort to actually to develop it. And one of the things is also that they get a tax break for selling food and wine and so on to the farmers. And from the time of Maria Theresia or Leopold II till now, we still have this osmica that is kind of it's written. This is Slovenian and this is Italian, on both sides of the border. So it means like that 8 days. Osmica is a Slovenian word for 8. And it's, you know, a tradition that even now, if there are already many states where still exist on this territory. So we have kind of now we come to the, you know, to the golden ages, to the end of the golden ages. We have the Belle Epoque that goes in the 19th century. 19th century means for this territory a big development, because actually the Habsburg rule makes from Trieste like kind of a Rotterdam of the south. And Gorizia is actually very near, and as a Mediterranean part of the territory, gets kind of a good wealth and so on, and starts to form these national identities, national trade unions, national trade organization. This was actually the Slovenian National Trade Organization in the city. And they start to ask also for education, for higher education, and so on. So the city actually develops its bourgeoisie on a national key, but at the same time is keeping together. So it's not really a toxic environment. Okay, 19th century is toxic a bit everywhere, but you know, as a place for forming national identity is actually a kind of a safe environment. There are many interesting things about this. So the first, let's say, Slovenian Stadtgymnasium curriculum is in Gorizia. At the same time, the Stadtgymnasium, so the state gymnasium, has a third of the program in German, third of the program in Italian, third of the program in Slovenian. And one more thing, Gorizia alone produces more Slovenian newspapers and magazines than all the cities of Slovenia combined. If we count even the Italian newspapers and magazines and German newspaper magazines, we find out that actually for a kind of a small town, it has a very big production, cultural production, at the same time of many nationalities. So, we come to this monument, this building. We will see it many times. It's the so-called the biggest, you know, pride of the technical achievement of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, is the so-called Vojhajner Bahn, or in Italian Ferrovia Transalpina, or Slovenian Bohinjska železnica, is actually the railway that connects Trieste with Vienna through the mountains. So it makes hole in the Alps and comes. In this way, you could come in around 6 hours from Trieste to Vienna. Now you need it around 12. So, and the biggest building is put on the eastern side that we see now. Is put on the eastern side, and it's a huge building. It's actually I think, bigger building than in Krakow, the same railway station, because the idea was that the city will develop so much that it will need such a big railway, and in front of it there was a long time nothing. So the city actually started to develop towards the monumental train station. So in 1906 it was opened, but the city couldn't really develop much because 9 years later started the war. So we had now a story of how actually developed this city for 1,000 years, 900 years, with all these people together. And now we have a war that is called Soško Horizontal Front, that it actually starts in 1915 with entering Kingdom of Italia in the First World War, and cuts the territory exactly in half. So here is the first time that actually this let's say, region is put in two parts, because the Austrian part puts the front on the river that actually crosses the city. So from here, from 1915, we have the destruction of, here is the war, we have the destruction of the city, and we have actually the destruction also of the railway. So from here we are talking about 1915, 1916, 1918, when the war starts. Now I thought that I would put much more pictures, but then I said, okay, this is the traumatic part, there are no pictures anymore. So from 1916, 1919, when the 1918, when the war stops, actually it doesn't. The war doesn't stop in the territory. It became like a latent civil war that goes on in the first years after the war with the expulsion first of the German population, then with the clashes, with the fires to the buildings, then the fascism. 100 years ago, so 1922 comes to power. Then we have the displacement of the people, then we have the repression, then we have the killing of the people, the torture of the people, then we have a forcible, actually, denationalization of the people and so on. That goes to the Second World War, so we are coming from one war to fascism to another war. That actually bring then the partisan uprising, then the reprisals, then the killing, the reprisals, the killing. So this is the traumatic part. And so we have, let's say, 30 years of trauma, and then we have the 44 to, yeah, please. Yeah. Then we have the 44 and 47. So after the end of the war, we have again a person, like this is Morgan. It's again a British guy, who comes and makes the demarcation. So this is the first time in the history that actually the city is in a peaceful, not the city, the territory is in the peaceful time demarcated in two ways. So the first Morgan line goes like this. Here is the city of Gorizia, and here is the city of Trieste. But this is the occupation zone of Yugoslavia, and this is the occupation zone of the Allies. So Italy is not occupied. And so it's 45 to 47, sorry. These 2 years actually bring a lot of the problems, because even before, let's say, there was a kind of a Berlin Wall, or East and West Berlin, because it started from 47. From the 45 to 47, we have a strong wall with strong military presence, with barbed wire and so on, that goes to 47 when they make a new line that is this blue line. And it goes actually directly here on the east side of Gorizia. Why it goes like this? Because Gorizia was a contested city, and but then the British said, Italians will take the city and you will take the infrastructure. So you will take the train station and the train way. How do you say? The train trucks. So So here is the first, it's written very funny, it's written Začasna meja or confine provisoria. It means like temporary border. So this temporary border, actually it's temporary, but we will come to this later, but actually is still, you know, part of the border. It goes through this square and actually cuts some, here you see some houses in half, some pigmates that were cut in half. There is a story also of people that the cemetery was cut in half, so people had to come during the night and throw the flowers on the other side and so on. So the cut is made a kind of abstract somewhere else, and it actually just cuts the territory and puts actually the city, let's say the city of Gorizia on one part and the region on the other part. So most of the region of the Goriziano, let's say, it's on this Yugoslavian side. And city, practically all the city, apart the things that are eastern than this building, are on the Yugoslavian or Slovenian side. So the idea what to do in 47 when this happens, and there are, you know, people with tanks there, with armies there, with many things going on, was, you know, should we start a war? What should we do? And then the idea came that actually they should take their own Gorica and we should make our own Gorica. And this is how a city actually started, the Nova Gorica. The Nova Gorica was first written in the small n, so it was a new Gorica, but it was, you know, it was a realization of the city that we lost. We just make a new one. And and then it became its name Nova Gorica. But the interesting part, okay, so I will put you know, some more pictures. This is how they were doing it. You know, this is my street. I live here. And yeah, this is how it was done there in 70s. So the idea is that that actually we are now making a Nova Gorica, said the communists, but after some year, Italy will be in communism, so, you know, we will be all together. But the real part is that now I should, you know, I'm very bad at names. There is a story of one of our very known journalists, Ervin Kladnik-Mirkrčić, who was doing reports outside in the Middle East, and actually a guy from the, no, it was not a guy, it was a very known, I will look the name, sorry. Josip Beilin, he was a Nobel laureate, he got the Nobel Prize for peace. He was the architect of the peace agreement between Palestine and Israel. And his agreement, he was talking to this journalist, he said something like this. He said, we were studying everywhere what is going on in the border regions. And we found out your city. And Nova Gorica is a great idea. It was a city made for peace because there is no contested territory anymore. We have two cities. We have a border in between, so it's a city made for peace. This is why I even call it like this. And so we have actually, as I said, like in a trauma. You know, we had the golden ages, we have a trauma, and now we are facing a kind of the city and the city. So we have actually two Goricas with two identity as Goricas, you know, living side by side, but not connecting to each other. And we have kind of at the same time two people that actually represent the day. Okay, we people from Nova Gorica know that this is a young town. But as part of the whole territory is this, you know, part of our identity of being a Goriziano or Goriziano in Italian. So there are two cities that were living for 10 years and years without any formal connection. they were actually completely kind of a double city, this kind of opposite city. One is a communist, the other is capitalist. One is, this kind of new, young, the other is medieval. One is kind of a conservative, the other is conservative and old money, bourgeois, the other is proletarian, and so on. So this kind of, double narrative of the identification is very incorporated still in our everyday living. And I would say this, the binarity of the narrative. And this was a very beautiful project that I will mention here. I will here mention a few projects that I will not be too long. It's made by 4704, which Alex Tamar is a representative here. It was that they put, like kind of a totems on a public spaces and ask what they remember about these spaces. And you come to this, you can take the sounds down, and it's actually finding out that people have actually completely different memories on some spaces that are actually common spaces on the border places and so on. So this idea actually that we have a completely binarity of perception of the, let's say, even objective and material space, and we will put it now out, not find a new one that is maybe not problematic, but we will put it out and actually kind of be in path to this. It's I think the core idea how Gorizia and Nova Gorica started to communicate with each other, especially how it's the cultural production nowadays going on, or at least in the last, 40 years. Yes, okay. I must finish, so I will say just three more projects. So one, it's that actually the city was never the border was never so close as it was, and it began big smuggler projects with whom a project when 2007 the border was opened. They opened the confessionary of smugglers in the border checkpoint, where people confessed what they were smuggling and so on. And from this project that started as a cultural project, at the end finished the museum. So this is the Museum of Smugglers. In the same project, made this idea that the identity of the territory is this finding of binarity. So in the same place where the confessionary was, we started to think about how to centralize the border as a part of the place of meeting. So this is our Carinarnica that already Michael said. It's a cultural hub put in the border checkpoint. This is one project. You can see and we come back to the square. So in 2004 the square is opened, and it's called it's one square, but it's called in two names. In the Italian side, it's called Piazza Transalpina, which talks about the great past, and the Slovenian side is called Trg Europe, Europe Square, which talks about some kind of future. So we are kind of in between the future and the past. This is one of our projects, our festival that is here on the border. It's actually directly on the square where the border once was. And the third, because I must present the people who are here, is what I called the third perception, is the perception of the animal. So why are we always talking about the perceptions as, this nation, where, the completely changing the identities and thinking about, how to leave the border without being a human, let's say. It was part of the project that Miha and Miha were making, the Gotropolis project. We have here one more. And the last one is that all these projects, all these projects were kind of a part of becoming the European capital of culture. The European capital of culture, Nova Gorica. Gorica is the is the first one that is a double town project. And here we can see again, here is again this building, as you can see. It's the idea of how to actually, through culture, start addressing the narratives, the identities, and the problems of the border cities. So, sorry for being so long, and it was 1,000-year-long story. I had to do it. Thanks.